friends.
Hello friends, and you want to start off today?
Yeah,
sure.
So today we're going to be talking about the vehicle that flies in the sky, an airplane.
Yes. An airplane or flight. We're going to talk about some secrets that you might not know of flights.
Of course, because they're called secrets and some people are hiding it.
Usually, like, people, they travel, but when animals like fishes, they stay in their habitats, like their water, like the ponds, like that, guys. But humans, they have the brain image of going to Mars or a different world. You see, all this is because of one word: flight technology, actually. So today we're going to be talking about some secrets that you might not know when you're boarding an airplane. And the Wright brothers created flight, but many people might not know what flight is. But flight, without you knowing, a lot of stuff is happening. So watch this video and find out.
So now let's zoom into the video.
Let's go. So as we're continuing, the Wright brothers invented the flight, but many people don't know what the flight is. And let's just give you some examples, a small example. So a small example would be, let's talk about how people bring food inside, and if everyone in the flight looks decently dressed up and how they look. Another thing is that, you see when you go like in the washroom, right? Priya?
Yeah, like at the restroom.
At the restroom, the bathroom. You normally go. And suppose like you're an elder who goes for a long distance flight and you're in the early morning and you unconsciously fall down to the ground. You'll be like, hey, who can help me? And that's the question you will ask. But people can actually open the door without you knowing. And that's what we're going to tell you in the video on how that works. And someone else is trapped in the bathroom, so that's what we're trying to do, how they can rescue them. Just like this, there are over 100 questions like you might ask, but we're going to talk about like 5 to 7 or 9 secrets about the flight that you might not know. You might be curious towards this question, and this question is very dedicated to people. And if you know some stuff or don't know stuff, please let us know in the comments. We'll be happy to reply to you, and yes, share this with your friends and family. Tip number 1 is, I want to tell you something that I researched. I didn't believe it either at first, but when you go to the toilet, the flight toilet, you are an elder, right? So you're going to the washroom in the early morning and you're like an old person and you're in a long distance flight for like America to India. It's very long. So when sometimes people fall down to the ground because they might be, their brains might not be working and they'll like suddenly drop consciously. And when that happens, yes, it's serious.
Yeah.
So when that happens, people might ask, who can rescue me? Well, there's actually a button in an emergency situation. The flight attendants can only open it. So no matter who you are, people can open the door and watch what you're doing. So if you fall down, there's a laboratory button, and when they pull that, they'll get another option, which is another button. And if they press on it, they can actually open the door from the outside. So if you lock yourself from the inside, they can come out from the outside. Another example this will be handy is if you're doing some bad stuff, like example would be smoking or doing any untrouble stuff in the washroom. People can check on you, like flight attendants. If they do that, they're the only ones that can open the door. So before you go in the washroom, make sure to think about what you do before you go inside. Number 2. The number 2 secret is about a flight worker. The main workers that operate and control the plane is the co-pilot and the pilot. You know what they both mean?
So they're like, the pilot is the one that drives it, right? So what's the co-pilot?
Basically this is what happened. The pilot is basically the one that main controls it, and the co-pilot is just for backup and assistance. And you might be wondering, what will happen if one of the pilots goes sick or even can't function? Your natural instinct will be to be scared, to panic. What's gonna happen? Was a plane crash? Well, no, not really. These are the reasons that the plane, like the co-pilots and the pilots, can stay healthy. So I never knew about this, but I was just out of researching. So they don't get the same food. They get separate foods. Because the reason is for food poisoning purposes. Suppose one pilot gets the food and the same food is given to them. Suppose the same parts are the same, they'll both get sick, and we don't want that happening. So what happened is that food suppliers, they both give different spices, no matter if it's spicy or if it's a different material. They both get different food no matter what. And another thing is, you might wonder, is the same food given to the co-pilot and pilot the same as the passengers, like when we board the plane? Well, no, that's the answer to your question. No, our food is different from their food. They have to also get checked up. They go through a lot of tests and checkup to make sure they're A-okay for the flight. And what that happens is that they check the blood, they check if they're like alcoholic, they check anything else, and they have to make sure the pilot is in steady condition for them to fly the plane.
So if they're healthy.
If they're healthy, and mostly because of that. And the pilots then can board the plane and fly it, because you really don't want to get on a plane when the pilot is not ready or is in a different condition. So now let's move on to the next one. Fact number 3. Number 3 is basically, many people think that when they go on a flight, they will get hit by a thunderstorm.
Why do they think that?
Because when you're going on a stormy night, you obviously know that thunder and lightning, whatever, is coming down from the sky. It's really chaotic night. So when that happens, people actually think and worry and panic about that. But you shouldn't worry. This is the reason why. Many planes and flights are designed to get anti-thunder or lightning proof. And the reason for this is because they want to make the situation less panicable. And you should feel safe when you're going on flights, because if thunder does hit it, then it'll just like bounce off and neglect against it.
It reflects like...
It'll reflect against the plane. So basically, don't worry about thunder, because most planes and flights are thunderproof. Now moving on to our next one. The next secret I'm about to tell you is about number 4. Number 4 is many people get emotional after when they go on a flight, because they really they daydream, they think a lot, and their emotions mysteriously change while they go on a flight.
Why do they?
I'll tell you why. Well, because the reason for this is when a plane goes higher into its altitude, many people mysteriously feel that. They feel nervous, especially after takeoff. When your ears start clustering and stuff, guys, you will get anxious when you're taking off. But when you're on the ground, you're perfectly fine. But another thing is they will think a lot. So the high altitude affects your mentality. And if you're sitting beside a person who is experiencing this, but you never experienced it before for them, then you really have to take care of them, and you have to watch them and check down they don't do anything dangerous or upsetting, and make sure you cheer and comfort them. So this is why many people think that. And even people that wrote these said that the oxygen will be lesser and air pressure is more denser. That's the reason many people have these mentally stuff and their emotions change.
Now on to number 5.
Yes, number 5 is basically, you might be thinking and having a doubt. Usually the people who are the flight people, passengers, they have a place to sit, they have a place to rest, and during long trip flights, they have a space to feel comfortable. But even the crew and the cabin crew don't have that. People think, if we have a seat, where does the cabin and flight attendants go? Well, it turns out they actually have their separate space where it's comfortable. And you might not see the whole flight crew team because they are on rotations and shifts. So one team might come up to you and the next one might be sleeping. And it even says, I even heard that people, the flight attendants, that have a separate middle space bedroom. And when that happens, it's really comfortable for them and it gives them a better rest.
They have a bedroom?
Yes, because people actually sleep just like the flight attendants, and they go on shifts and they take turns with them. And that's the reason for people might be thinking about that. So I cleared your doubts. Point number 6. You might be wondering, what happens if someone dies during a flight or an airplane? Well, no one has actually been proved to be dead during a flight on the air travel database. But this is what I think happens, or I heard about it. So when someone dies during a heart attack or during the bathroom in the airplane or flight, this is what happens. They usually get strapped on and get covered on to their own seat, and then they get buckled up with a seatbelt, and they get taken to the airport, the nearest airport that they land to, and then the doctor checks up on the person. If the doctor says that the person is dead, then their perspective is they actually are dead. But if the person is not dead, you shouldn't say that the person is dead.
So the airplane doctor can't just say that the person's dead.
Yes, there are 3 to 4 doctors, like my sister said, and they can check up on you, but they can't finally keep a record if you're dead. So thank you for bringing up that point, and yes, let's move on to our next point. Number 7 this time. So number 7 is basically, I got a question for you. If you ever went on a flight before, then the people, the flight attendants, usually give the person a blanket for a long distance flight and just to rest and sleep in, right? So when they give you a blanket, let me tell you something a little bit about the blanket. The blanket is actually not washed, for what I heard before. I don't say that it's not washed fully, but maybe. And they actually repackage and reuse the blanket. So suppose someone went on a previous flight. when they get the supplier to supply the blanket to them, and then they take the blanket and use it. When the packaged blanket returned, they have to repackage it without washing it or cleaning it. They refold it and then repackage it, and the new person gets it, and it keeps on going. And the person who's actually doing this is why it's like unsanitary, and usually you shouldn't take the blankets, but maybe not, but people don't clean the blankets, just reused. So that's basically about the blankets. So now move on to our next fact. Now let's move on to our point number 8. Number 8 is basically when you go on the flight, or anyone else go on a flight, you might ask or heard of that the flight food doesn't taste like usual. The reason for this is because when you're flying, the plane goes up, right? So when that happens, your altitude changes. The more pressure you build up and the more you go up high in the sky, the lesser taste bud in your tongue actually decreases. And it's not the reason that the plane food tastes bad. It actually tastes good, but the reason for this is because your taste is actually, the sense is going down. And that's why. So whenever you eat any meal on a plane, when you go high, but when you eat something on the low, it tastes good. And you actually taste it.
So when you go high, it tastes like
it's basically changing the altitude and the pressure goes up. So that's basically why some foods taste like, you can't taste it. That's what I mean. So now let's move on. This is our last tip. So you might have heard the saying, people say, why you shouldn't drink water on a plane, like the plane's water. And usually people drink tea and a cup, but drinking bottled water and taking some water from your own place and then bringing it to the flight, that's really good. But when you're not drinking it like you're drinking the plane's water, it's actually, there might be bacteria inside and other germs. So let me explain why. You might have even seen flight attendants offering you coffee and tea, but the water inside is the plain water. And the flight attendants don't even drink the coffee and the water. So when you drink it, you're gonna be like, wow, it tastes good. But really, the bacteria are inside. The reason for this is because the tank. So the plane basically stores water in a tank and the pipe that stores water. So they only clean it yearly from 1, 2, 3 times. You might not believe it, but I heard of that. And when they clean it like that much, you might think there's a possible chance of bacteria, germs, and others stuck inside the water. So the next time you go on this plane, keep this a secret, but don't drink water on the plane. Try to bring your own. So now we moved on to our last secret. So thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this information, but we're kind of learning on this topic, and it's not really good or bad. But if you guys have any information that you would like to share with us, leave them down in the comments below section.
And then we'll try to learn it.
We'll try to learn as well and make a video out of it if you want to. And so see you in the next video. Until then, bye.